Hello, my name is Peter Parfitt. Welcome to the Brit workshop. I'm actually working on some little bits and pieces for my Axcaliber CNC machine, and one of those is a little cabinet to put little screws and things like that in. And the material I'm going to use is some melamine coated, I think underneath here it's chipboard, I'm not sure. I imagine it is, which is quite tricky to cut. And I just happened to mention this in passing during one of my phone calls to Axminster Tools and Machinery, and they said, aha, what you need to use is one of our new blades. And it's a new blade under their Axcaliber label, and it's in the series called Cutpro. Now, this is not a cheap blade, but they said to me, you'll be amazed just how well it cuts. And the reason they say it cuts so well is because it scribes a line so well. It's got a very high tooth angle. I think it's 35 degrees. I'll put the stuff on the screen so you can see it. Negative rake. And there are also some other features which Axminster say make it very attractive. For example, these various cuts that you see here in the saw blade, which are there to relieve stress and also to help cut down noise, these are all resin filled, which means that theoretically the noise level should be even less than you might expect with a normal run-of-the-mill blade. Anyway, the one they've sent me is the right size for my Kapex saw. So that's where I'm going to put it. And I'm now going to attack my MFT3 in order to create the stock that I'll be using. So my brand new MFT3 top is going to get its first kerf mark. I've got the brand new Path Super Dogs in. I'm going to use the track saw and get some nice pieces all square, ready for the demonstration of this new saw blade in the Kapex. So I've got my melamine coated chipboard ready to cut. Now the Kapex was my first festival purchase. It is a brilliant saw. I've used it day in, day out for, I think it must be at least 6 years now. And apart from obviously having to have blades sharpened, it's gone absolutely brilliantly. I did whack it with a big lump of wood once and I had to reset it so it was all nice and square again, but that was easy to do. Anyway, on to the saw blade. And remember when you come to change a saw blade on the Kapex, that thread there is a left-hand thread. Now, the new saw blade, you do need to take care when putting it in to make sure that you put it the right way around. You don't want it going around the wrong way. That's actually very straightforward, really. Now, this little box I'm making is going to be brought together with a whole bunch of mitre cuts. Very simple. Now, in order to do these, I've set the saw at 45 degrees. It's a good test for any saw blade because melamine can sometimes be tricky to cut, and we'll see how it goes. Well, that side that's there is absolutely perfect. The very tricky side, of course, is the side that's uppermost here. Melamine is like a brittle coating, and anything it knocks it makes it come off in chips. And for the next cut, I've got a stop just in there. You probably can't see it very easily, but it's held in with a clamp on the right here. This clamp is holding this piece of wood in place, and this clamp is holding that to that. And so that's reasonably well held, and now I can do my cut. Now you can probably see just how clean that cut is there. That edge there, really nice and clean, and this edge here, absolutely razor sharp. You could almost have a shave with it. And the cut on this piece, this is the tricky side, is, I'd say, almost, apart from a little bit, I just caught it with my finger then, which is a bit silly, but it's, as far as I'm concerned, that's a really good cut, so that's all right. Now this time things are a little bit easier, as this piece of wood is a little bit longer. I'm able to clamp it directly. Unfortunately, and in handling, I've knocked a piece of the melamine out there. It just breaks away from an exposed edge like that, so you have to handle it very carefully. And I'll just bring you in a little bit closer so you can see that cut. Jolly clean. Now this is a piece of veneered plywood and the good side is underneath. And my zero clearance insert has seen better days, and it's not operating much as a zero clear insert. So we'll just see how clean a cut we can get with the blade. There is that edge, absolutely perfect. That was the top edge, and the bottom edge is equally perfect. Absolutely beautiful, no problem at all. And now we'll look at the other side. This again was the top edge, perfectly clean, and there's the bottom edge, absolutely spot on. I'm going to do a series of test cuts now, and I'm not going to bore you with the demonstration of how they're done, other than to say that I've separated these two sacrificial pieces at the back here so that there can be no support given to the cut edge as the blade goes through it. And that will demonstrate just how well the blade exits a particular piece of wood. I've got a whole bunch of different materials. I'm going to do those cuts, and then at the end I will show you a close-up of every single bit of cut, and I'll try and point out any defects. Okay, I've done all those cuts and I've got the pieces here, and I'm going to try and give you a really good look at them now. Now let's look at the melamine. These are cut at a 45-degree angle. Now bear in mind this edge is really delicate, and there is a little ding there, and that could have been me in handling this. If I show you this other piece, there's a tiny ding there, and I really honestly cannot say whether it was done whilst it was being sawn or due to handling, because this edge is so delicate. It's almost a millimetre across there with nothing but melamine and nothing to support it. Let's look at these others now. Let's look at this one in particular. This is a piece of mahogany. You can see there is an indication of exit stress there. That would just sand off. That cut face is absolutely smooth. The underneath side of the cut, absolutely clean as a whistle. And this one, piece of cheap plywood, really good. And now here's the thing I was making at the very beginning. It's to go with my CNC. It's got places in here for little plastic containers which will have all sorts of bits and pieces for the CNC in them. And like so. And then on the top here, you may be able to see I've got a little brass bit of dowel sticking out and 4 magnets. And I've got this unfinished piece of board. It's got a very large washer which I put in there, and I cut that out with the CNC using VCarve Pro, incidentally, and it's absolutely perfect. I measured the size of the washer and it cut it perfectly. Little hole there, and the idea is that then fits down. That sits on there. Now this allows me, with the computer will go on here, there'll be sides to stop the computer falling off, but it allows me whilst I'm at the CNC to have the computer facing in a different direction. For example, if I'm here operating the machine or getting the machine prepared, I want to have the keyboard here, but when the machine's in operation it'll be being driven by the computer, but I want the computer to face away so it doesn't get covered in dust. So that's the idea, and this is pretty pretty solid. I can't lift that off accidentally. And so there it is. But let's actually look at the various bits of melamine that I cut. All of the cuts that were done on this side here in the front were done using my TS55 and the guide rail. And you can see I've got some chipping out there. Frankly, I don't care, but there you go. There's some chipping out there. All the other cuts were done using that new saw blade, and the edges were really, really sharp, so I have sanded them off. And that, with those couple of odd little chips that I got, which could have been through handling, that really got rid of those quite nicely. You can see here the sort of exit wounds were absolutely zero with this plastic which is there. So I'm very pleased with that. So that will do a nice little job for the CNC. So there we go, that was my little adventure with the Axcaliber Cutpro saw blade on my Kapex saw. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.